Welcome to the Hockey PDOcast. My name is Dimitri Filipovich, and joining me is my good buddy Daryl Belfry. Daryl, what's going on, man?
I'm excited. Valentine's Day edition. What better way to spend it than shooting on Draisaitl? Sick.
Yeah, and I mean, very few things I love more than getting together every week with you this season and just nerding out and breaking down tape of players we really appreciate. And the Draisaitl is just that. I think we're going to get into a lot of really high level concepts that obviously apply to him, but I think we can stretch out to other players as well, like kind of a good combination of them that we see in his game. Perhaps the timing would have been more apt to do his teammate Connor McDavid today after he just eviscerated the Red Wings last night. But ultimately, I think that would just be like 50 minutes of me and you making sound effects and just laughing at tape we see. In this case, I think for Draisaitl, he's almost more interesting for our purposes because he's got this unique combination of diversity of skills, and we're going to get into each of those individually, but also then leveraging them expertly to really, I think, get the most out of them and really achieve his full potential. And we've seen that the past couple seasons. So I've got so many notes here. We're going to run through a bunch of clips as we talk about it as well for those that are watching along with us on YouTube. But let's get into it because I want to cover as much ground as we can on this guy. And there's just so many fascinating wrinkles to his game. Where do you want to start?
Well, for me, like obviously it'd be very easy to go into his passing because he is very unique there, and I know that we'll get into that. But for me, the number one place that I like to go when I study Draisaitl is his ability to make plays under heavy contact. I think he's the best in the NHL at being able to make plays inside of puck protection and inside of contact. There is so many times that he is able to make the poised play. So the play, because the thing about passing and making plays is the the best players in playmaking, they make a play when the other guy on the other end needs the puck, not when you need to get rid of it. And oftentimes the pass is made too early because the puck carrier is under so much duress that they have to get rid of the puck. Drysidle is a unicorn in that way because he does not care about contact, checking pressure. He doesn't care about your stick. You can come try to hit him. You can put him in small space. You can force him into a stop. None of that matters. He has the poise. He can fend off all that physicality and at the same time be poised and be able to make the next play when it's needed. And I think that's why he's just such a fascinating player to watch. And he's so effective at being able to make other people better because he just gets you the puck when you need it.
Yeah, and you see that manifest itself in a bunch of different areas of his game. I had in my notes, like, I think his footwork is very impressive, right? Because he's certainly not, fleet of foot, especially when you see him sharing the ice with Connor McDavid. McDavid does a lot of the movement, whereas Draisaitl's a bit more stationary. But his footwork in terms of not only opening up for a shot and making himself available to receive passes, but just how he can corral pucks in traffic like that. His ability to go skate the stick and shoot right off of it is pretty much unparalleled for me. Like, it's just one motion. He never really slows down. That radius of reception that we like to talk about, right? You can't throw a great player a bad pass. In this case, it seems like he can just handle anything you throw at him because he can just kind of kick his leg out and just stop it with his skate, and then bam, it's on his stick right away, and he's making a play off of it. I had that. I had also his willingness, and this is something we talked about with Kucherov quite a bit, and a lot of the most skilled players in this game. Like, you have to have that comfort to play with the puck away from your body, right? Like, he exposes it to the defender and he gets them to sort of commit and declare their intentions and really make their stick available. And then he'll make a play within that, right? And I think that sort of speaks to what you're saying in terms of his comfort and how undeterred he is in traffic, where you can be up on him, you can have the stick in the lane, and he's still going to find a way to do whatever he was initially going to do. He might just kind of go, make one extra move to get there.
Well, you have like really three types of plays. You have one play that you're under pressure and you advance the puck to a safe area. So you put the puck kind of in a 60-40, 70-30 spot where your teammate can get it. It's not really a pass. You're just advancing it in terms of like field position. That's one. Then you have, when you're under pressure, you have a play in which you're just going to possess the puck. So it's not really a threatening play. You're not looking to make it anything to the interior. You're just going to, you're just going to make a safe pass, but it's definitely a pass. You're passing it to someone, but it's more of a possession pass, usually to the outside, maybe something like low to high or a side change behind the net. Those kind of plays is another type of play. And then you have the plays that Draisaitl makes, which are he under extreme pressure, he can find a way to get the puck into the most dangerous areas, and it just doesn't take long for him to be able to find it. And what I love about him also, you mentioned his skating. I think he's an underrated skater. He has excellent glide. He can use your body as a slingshot to push himself into space. He gets on the outside of your hands, so he gets into your stick range, which most players they don't have a lot of leverage out there. Once you get outside into stick, he can attack off your heels. He spins like nobody's business and makes passes inside of his spin. You mentioned how he dangles the puck out, pulls the puck into a protection to invite you to try to check. You overcommit, and then he'll spin off of your body, opening up the passing lane that he wants. He's really the definition of a guy. If you ever wanted to watch a guy who's playing chess, while in terms of like moving pieces around, being patient, making only the right play at the right time. He just has that play. And when I first came in the league, it was interesting because I didn't think he skated particularly well at all. And I was like, how is this guy doing it? And I thought he was just kind of lumbering and would get pucks on the back wall and would make these great passes. And then I started to really watch him and start to see the skating ability he really has. And it's to do with his feel for space and the ability to then just kind of get himself into a space where you just can't defend. It looks like you have him. It looks like you have a physical contact on him. You might actually achieve the physical contact, but let's be honest, he is in complete control of the play and he does what he wants. And that is just such a rare thing. Most players are in a take what you give kind of thing. He's not that guy.
Oh, I think describing it as chess is great. I think that's what I appreciate about him. There's something so tactical to everything he does, right? I think he has a real keen understanding of whatever his relative limitations are physically, right? And compensating for them by just playing to his strengths instead. And you'll see that like he'll very rarely try to force the issue by taking the puck out wide off the rush and trying to beat you to the net that way you see Connor McDavid do it, because he knows that unless he has the angle there or you're really off balance, he's not going to be able to pull it off. And instead, he utilizes, stopping up short, curling back around, that spin move you mentioned, buying himself time, just getting the puck into space and then being able to make a play. And then you tie in the puck protection you mentioned off the top in terms of, as such a big dude with his frame, he's able to protect it and kind of survey and then make plays off of that. So yeah, you put it all together and it's really fun to watch. In going through his tape this season, something that really stuck out to me is, and I think this speaks to his offensive genius and kind of that level of chess he's playing, how much he messes with defenders when he's off the puck. And you'll see it like when they're rushing the puck up the ice and one of his teammates has it and he's just sort of doing a net drive or trying to bring a defender with him through the middle lane. He's so good at knocking the defender's stick out of the lane, right? He'll almost like negate it and lift it up when he doesn't have the puck to just create space then for his teammate to step in and make a play. It really reminds me of something that like Pavel Datsyuk turned into an art form, except I guess in Datsuk's case, he was doing it sometimes even when he had the puck, like he would just stop it and then lift your stick and then go. But he was just able to manipulate time unlike anyone else. But you see that a lot with Draisaitl, right? He relishes in messing with defenders even when he doesn't have the puck, just trying to kind of poke and prod at them and lift their stick and mess around and make life difficult for them. And I don't know, it's really fun to watch. And it must be super irritating because as a defender, you're kind of standing there and you're focused on the guy with the puck, but you're aware that Draisaitl's in the area, and then all of a sudden he's attacking you as well. And it's just so rare. Like a lot of offensive players don't really utilize that part of the game.
Yeah, you see it on the rush. You see it in the offensive zone where I I call it grabbing sticks. Like he'll grab a stick on the way by to open up a passing lane, or to your point, he'll create space or extend the skating space for someone else. It's just a heightened sense of offensive awareness of what the play needs and providing that. Providing that. Where I also like him off the puck is he is probably the best player in the league at that low pie on the offensive side, or on the off wing side. When I say low pie, I mean when you look at the circle, um, if you cut the circle in quadrants, he'd be in the bottom quadrant on like towards the net. I call that the low pie, and being able to shoot off the pass in that area where he's really low, right at the bottom of the circle. It's a tough place to shoot from because the angle's not good. You're usually shooting it back into the goalie. He tends to be able to find the middle bar, which is really the spot to hit, because that means you're going slicing the puck right past the post. But that's an area of the ice that's not really like normally considered a really strong scoring area. It's bad angle shot. And he is sitting there in that spot, like started off on the power play where I first noticed it, but he does it a lot 5-on-5, where he'll sit in that low pie spot and he shoots one-timers from there, putting it in the net, and he's just developed that place. But when you think about a player off the puck and finding himself in like these unique areas, that is one area that is unique to him. He spends a lot of time there, and he's extremely effective in that area on that off wing. And now his teammates know to find him there. And, you talk about being off the puck. Sometimes it's just that consistency of availability, but it's in an unusual spot. Like a lot of people, they go into traditional spots. They go to the dot, they go to the hash marks, they land at the net. And this guy is in another spot that's a little unusual, but yet because of how he plays and what he's interested in, he's able to make it really highly effective and very difficult to defend. So I love that you brought up his ability off the puck, because it is phenomenal, and especially how effective he is with a guy like McDavid, who can be very difficult to play with. Draisaitl does it as well as anybody, and I think it's because of these little nuances of being able to play in really intelligent spots, even though they're maybe a little different than what people might expect. But he
Well,
does it consistently.
I'm glad you brought that up because I really want to get into a shot. And I was scared to start off with it because I didn't know how much of today's episode we would take up on it and whether we'd leave
Mm.
enough room for any of the other stuff. So we started with a little bit of the details off the puck. Now let's get into the meat of it. I want to first talk to you about the shooting motion and technique, right? Because I think what stands out is like his stick is almost like a paddle in a sense. And when you watch a lot of these one timers, there's something so violent about how he just kind of like slaps at it and how quickly it happens, right? He can almost look like he's sort of standing in that spot of the ice that you're talking about. You see there where he looks pretty harmless, right? He's kind of stationary, unassuming, and then within a split second, and it's all in one motion, he drops down to one knee and he just slaps at it and picks a spot in the corner. And I mean, it's really fun to watch. I think certainly style points. We've spoken about players in the past. It obviously looks very cool. I think we all grew up just appreciating that type of a dropping to one knee one timer, but his utilization of it and how it's turned into such a legitimate weapon. I wanted to start with that before we talk in the kind of the geometry and what you were mentioning about his specific location on the ice.
Yeah, so when we were doing the third rebuild of Matthew's shot, this shot came up as for me one to really study, because the one timer became a real area of focus for Austin, and I think Draisaitl's one knee one timer is fascinating, and really I think it's a phenomenal shot for players to study and for players to try to utilize. And the two pieces that really stand out in the one knee one timer is one, He doesn't use a big backswing. If he hardly uses any backswing, actually, it's like an old school snapshot where you would like use, you know how you pull the stick back, and as you were drawing it back, you would kind of turn the stick and put the toe kind of down, and then that would give you like that would engage your hands to get the snapping action. That's kind of what he does, and what I love about it is the control and the timing. He can hit a puck that's passed a lot harder because he's in so much more control, and there's less range of motion that he has to be concerned about as it relates to affecting his timing. So, because his shot motion is so compact, the stick is so close to the ice, his adaptability to speed, weight, and location of the puck makes him be able to hit a lot of pucks that maybe he shouldn't. Pucks that are like way back in the back part of his stance, pucks that are come in maybe a little too hot, maybe a puck that comes in and maybe it's like bouncing or in an awkward area. He has less factors to have to worry about because he's not raising the stick over his head and having to now try to find that timing, which can be ever so difficult, especially when you're trying to sync it with the way your feet are. And that brings me to the second part of what makes it so valuable to study his one knee one timer. He consistently is able to turn his hips on the puck inside the shot motion. And what he does exceptionally well is turn his front foot down to the end boards. And the value of that is it allows him on that off wing side to really follow through properly towards the net and really engage the entire rotation inside the shot motion. And even in a small, compact backswing, I think his real value in the shot is one, the timing is impeccable because he's controlled the variables, but then his follow through allows him to get a lot of much more control than a lot of players can get because he's so controlled in the front end. He uses his footwork so well. He gets the timing down. That's why he's able to consistently hit that middle bar. I think he's got extremely accurate shot off that one timer from a variety of different passing angles because of the compact motion of the front part of the shot, which most players don't do. And it's a unique part of the way he executes it consistently. I think it's brilliant. And it is almost like a starting point from a player development perspective on a one timer is that particular shot. And that's how we viewed it because, like I said, it has so many cool characteristics to it.
What do you describe? Sorry, I forgot the name of the pie where he takes the shots from.
Low pie. So
Low
it's just
pie.
a low pie. So it would be described by the bottom hash mark, interior hash mark to the dot, to the outside hash mark, bottom hash mark, or sorry, to the dot and then straight down to the end board. So inside hash mark to the dot and then down towards the end wall at the bottom of the circle. That particular area is what I would call the low pie.
Yeah, I mean, I would extend it even further. Like it's almost like he gets into that dead angle, or even sometimes on the wall. Like you'll see him kind
Yes.
of stand there just to get sort of in your blind spot as a defender and a goalie, and kind of get lost
Mhm.
there and just wait for that opportunity to shoot. And you'll see on some of those, like it's just hilarious because you very rarely see players willingly stand there and then shoot from there as regularly as he does. He's really, I think, and I think it's by design. Like I think he's maximized the full surface of the offensive zone. And I think you mentioned the complement with McDavid and why that's important is it's kind of like a basketball concept where when you have someone who can drive the way McDavid can, you really want to space out, right? Because you don't want to congest the middle of the ice and just add another body and you're standing there, then a defender's with you, and all of a sudden the bodies are piling up and there's so many more roadblocks and kind of situations where McDavid can't just skate as freely as he wants to. In this case, him standing on the border like that really just opens up that lane for McDavid to skate around and probe and do what he does best and then get the puck to Draisaitl there. And so I really like the way they play off of each other and the way he's incorporated that to kind of get the most out of that partnership. I think that's really cool. I think the other note that I had was, Sport Logic has him at 114 scoring chances this season in 49 games, which is about 2.5 per game, give or take. And it's still top 10 in the league. But what I find interesting is that none of those shots we're describing count or register as scoring chances, right? Because a lot of modeling just looks at proximity or location on the ice you're taking the shot from. And so we're programmed to think, all right, a shot from this bad angle that far out of the net, that's not really a dangerous opportunity. You'll live with that. That's a perimeter shot for an opposing defense. That's how you classify it. And in this case, I guarantee you that any team that's preparing for a game against the Oilers, when they're doing their tape study and when they're talking about, all right, what do we want to look for? What do we want to try to take away from them? This is like the first thing, other than, I guess, make sure you stay attached to McDavid as best you can. It's make sure you know where Draisaitl's standing and don't let him get that off, because it is a legitimate scoring chance, right? I would say he's probably scores on about 20 to 25% of those shots he takes, which
Mm.
is almost as likely as like a breakaway for an average NHLer, to kind of give you the context of how dangerous of an opportunity he is. But I don't think it's really characterized as such by a lot of scoring chance data and a lot of expected goals models, just because for mere mortals, it's not a very dangerous opportunity. But Draisaitl's the exception in that case.
Well, the best players in the world are the best players in the world because they're able to expand the nets and they do things that are different. And that's exactly him. He's found a place in which he can be open. He's found the shot that matches that space. He puts himself there with a reasonable amount of frequency in which a guy like McDavid can draw all the attention to him on the other side of the ice, and then all of a sudden zip it over there, and there he is. The other thing too is the further he goes back off the dot line. So when you look at the geometry of it, so you got the dot line at the bottom of that pie is really, there's some optimal shooting aspects of that when you're on the dot line, and as you go towards the goal line, it becomes, the angles become a lot different. But then when you start going further back towards the boards in like the back part of it, now you're really talking about really different types of angles, and that's where the type of shot and the ability to be able to adjust to passes and still be able to find, be able to maybe kiss it off the far post, for example, or shoot it off the goalie and in, because now you're not only you're down and you're towards the goal line, but now you're further back. All those things come into play, and those types of players, a player like Draisaitl, the imagination, being able to turn that particular shot into a legitimate scoring chance, even though it's not categorized as that by most people, because most people aren't capable of shooting it. And he has figured it out, and now it's a unique weapon to him. That's, you couldn't describe being world class any better than that. That's what happens.
Well, and I think as a component of sort of that cat and mouse game between shooter and goalie in the current landscape of goaltending, I think it's fascinating. I don't want to get too into the weeds of the technical stuff from the goalie department. Like, I'll save that for when I have Kevin Woodley on this show. But just in thinking this through, what I find fascinating is with the current sort of utilization of the reverse VH, right? And how we know the way goalies are moving laterally and what they're trying to accomplish. I think it's a net positive for them, in the sense that it's almost like triage, right? You're playing the percentages, you're trying to take away the most immediate threat. But for a lot of these goalies, the way they're operating now, as you move laterally and as you're trying to kind of hug that post and take away the stuff low and lateral, it's leaving room for like the top 1% of finishers in the game to exploit more often than I think they'd like. But it's kind of like you have to live with it because you're not going to be able to take everything away. So you're just playing those percentages. But when I think of a guy like Draisaitl and his incorporation of this from those angles, and when you see him, how he can beat a goalie like he just did, Connor Hellebuck there, where I'm sure he thought he had sealed that up, and then all of a sudden he still got through him anyways. I find that really interesting because it's almost like it's this 4D way of thinking of like, all right, what goalies are doing now, and then how I can sort of exploit my skills to try and get around that.
Well, it's interesting because this shot really highlights something also interesting as it relates to goal scoring, and that is shooting beside or by the hips of the goalie. So where the hip is and trying to get into that space is a very interesting spot because it's difficult to save. You got to use your hands. You're not going to be able to move your hips into that space. So when you watch Draisaitl shoot from this angle, many of the shots are like hip height, that go clear the pad, easily clear the pad, kind of in an awkward spot for the arm and the hand, and for the goalie's hands, but they're in like in that hip area. When the goalie, depending on how he's sliding or whatever, there's oftentimes that area is an expanded, like that clip right there kind of gives a pretty good example of where the goalie is sliding, he's moving, but because his hip is centered, and then he's extending his arms and his hands. So that space where his hip is, that is an extended scoring space. And so if you can find that consistently, which Draisaitl does, you're putting the puck in a really awkward spot for the goalie to have to save, because he's just trying to get over there. And like I said, his hip is anchored to the middle of his body. So the closer you get to the hip, the more space that you are finding where the net is. The further you come off the hip and you're getting into the legs and you're getting into the hands, that kind of favors the goalie, because the more that they get out, get their hands off their body, etc., it makes it a little easier. So I think that is an interesting spot. And I remember, distinctly working with a couple of guys shooting, and that was an area, not just in situations like these types of situations, but in other spots where they're looking to try to find the space around the hips of the goalie, which is a curious spot. Now, as opposed to, like, you would think from that shot space that he would need to go like by the goalie's ears and like up under the bar and all of that, but you rarely see him shoot there. If I don't know that he put a puck there this year. I think all the pucks, or most of the pucks, are in that hip level spot, trying to hit that middle bar.
Well, my question for you then is how, I think we've spoken about this in the past, but how, as a shooter, much can you sort of actually pick your spot and then by design go for it? Because I know what Lewis talks about from a goalie perspective, especially if you're scrambling or you're moving laterally in those spots, you're out of position. You just want to make your best effort to cover the middle of the ice, because most shooters are typically going to go there, right? Increases your margin for error. You're not trying to get too cute with it. You're just getting the puck on net. I imagine it's an entirely different calculus for a guy like a Matthews or a Draisaitl, because they're so elevated in terms of their pinpoint accuracy and what their ambitions are as a shooter, that they can kind of go for it a little bit more, even if that means occasionally missing the net. But how much of it like goes into that in terms of actually trying to get it in that one specific spot every time versus just hammering it and getting it on net?
Well, we talk about windows more than a specific spot. So
Hmm.
there's some automated windows from certain locations that you would want to look at, because it would give you the highest probability to score. And so it's less about picking a spot and more about there's certain windows in certain situations that are more advantageous and give you better percentages. And so players would have some automated windows that they would be looking to shoot for, particularly as it relates to shots off the pass, which are, there's so many variables to a shot off the pass that you can't control. The weight of the puck, where the puck is going to come. You oftentimes have to adjust to the puck. So it makes it much harder to just pick a spot and like, this is my spot or whatever. Plus, you're so focused on the pass. You probably did a pre-check look at the net, but then the pass is coming, you're not looking at the net. You're looking at the puck as it comes. And so there's a lot of parts off the pass that are harder. So that's where those automated windows, I think one of the best examples of automated windows in shots off the pass that has ever had in history is Ovechkin. When you go back and you trace his shots, and also another guy to really watch with that is Stamkos. Stamkos is another guy I think that is brilliant in his ability to shoot in windows. And the number of times that Stamkos hits the middle bar is frightening. And he hits it about halfway up the net. It's pretty fascinating. So yeah, I think players who shoot off the pass typically have areas of the net that they know, windows of the net that they know that are going to be a problem or harder for a goalie, and then they're looking to shoot to those windows. An on stick shooter like a Matthews, he has a little bit more of a situation where he can really pick his spot because it's on stick. He can make choices. He can be manipulative. He can do things to influence and expand the net because the puck is on his stick and he's taken away a lot more of the variables that come from shooting off the pass.
Well, that's why it was so interesting watching Draisaitl at the All-Star Skills competition. And obviously, it's a gimmicky event, it's an exhibition, it's totally different than game. But I think part of what makes him special is his ability to control a lot of those variables and still make the right shot in that sense. Whereas all of a sudden you completely dumb down the exercise from, all right, here's a clean pass with no defensive sticks, no traffic, no goalie. You just have to shoot it. And he's still obviously, remarkably good, but it almost takes away a bit of what makes him special in an in-game setting. And I think that's what makes it so cool. I mean, his efficiency as a shooter, Daryl, I think we spoke about this with Mikko Rantanen, and similarly, like it's unfair that someone at that size can have two such unbelievable gifts as a shooter and as a playmaker. And we spoke about that with Rantanen. But in this case, last 6 seasons, here's Draisaitl shooting percentage: 21.7, 19.7, 18.5, 19.8, 21.1, 18.4 this year, while scoring at a 50 goal pace over those 6 seasons. And this isn't like Alex Tanguay, where I remember in his prime, he would shoot like once a game when it perfectly suited him. And he was a 20% shooter. And it's like, man, this guy is so efficient. This is on much higher volume and much higher degree of difficulty that he just does it every year. And so I just wanted to shout out that efficiency because we often speak about how hard it is to score in the NHL and how many shots you wind up not wasting, but how many shots are just not going to be able to go in because the math doesn't check out. And he's almost broken that, right? Like when you see someone shooting 20% in a season, it's like, all right, this guy's getting pretty lucky. He's on a heater. I'm expecting a bit of progression. And that's just been his status quo for 6 seasons now.
Well, I think what that speaks to more than anything, I think it speaks less to his shooting and more to his passing and playmaking mind, because when the shot is not there, he can adjust and go into a catch that might lead to improving a play for someone else. So when you're not as gifted a passer and don't have the same level of poise as this guy has, you may not be as judicious about the shots that you're taking, where he might, if the puck is not exactly what he's looking for or what have you, he can not shoot that puck and turn it into or try to find another scoring chance, where other people are like, any puck that comes anywhere remotely near me, I'm pretty much going to shoot this. And I think that his shooting percentage is more of a reflection of his belief in his passing ability, and that's what makes him more judicious about the shots in which he chooses to actually shoot.
Well, then let's get into that. We've hinted at it a little bit. Let's speak about the passing then, because you noted it off the top, his ability to make plays when contested in traffic, using that frame to protect the puck, survey, probe, get the puck. I think, I mean, clearly it's the passing off the backhand, right? It is remarkably special. I would say it's Kucherov and him, and then pretty much everyone else, particularly when passing the puck sort of fearlessly through bodies and through sticks, right? It's one thing to, I think, make like a crisp pass when you have a tape to tape opportunity. Well, you'll see him in terms of his attempts where he's trying to get the puck into this short window through 3 sticks in a congested area and still get it there. And it's a no look backhand that he whipped at full speed. I think that's remarkable, and that's obviously what stands out. And I think that also allows him, you mentioned that kind of how that accentuates the shooting and gives him other options. I think it also speaks to why he's able to get the puck in these unique places in the middle of the ice as a passer, because he's not limited to just making one type of pass, right? He's pretty much got every single option in his bag when he's trying to distribute.
Yeah, what I like about him, we talked about it initially, is that you can't rush him into a pass. Like, he's going to pass when the pass is right to pass. And if it's not there, he'll extend the possession and find the next window to make the pass in, which is incredibly difficult to play against. You usually have to bring multiple people. If you really want to rush him, you got to have to bring multiple people, which then creates a whole other host of problems. What I also love about him is he passes. He's like a master of weight. What I mean by that is the weight he puts on the puck. Like, there's a lot of people, and we've talked about this before, it's like they just pass it way too hard. And he doesn't do that. He passes it appropriate to the situation for the guy on the other end. It feels like the pass comes in, no matter how hard the pass is, it comes in soft for the guy that gets it. Like, how many times when we watch his video do you see a pass from Draisaitl that rolls off the end of the stick of the guy on the other end? Like, he doesn't seem to happen like that. He passes it because the weight is proper, that the guy on the other end can catch it. And that's such a talent. The feel for the puck, the feel for the situation, the feel for space, to be able to pass what the guy needs on the other end. Like, that's the real gift. He's easy to catch a pass from. And I think that's fascinating. The other thing that he does is he passes brilliantly to handedness. You don't, even on whether he's on his backhand, his forehand, under pressure, not under pressure. If the guy is on the right, if the guy's a right-handed shot on the right side, he's getting the puck in front of him. If the guy's a left-handed shot on the right side, he's getting the puck in his skates or slightly behind him where he can handle it where he wants it. He doesn't, if the guy is a right-handed shot on the right side, he's not passing it in his skates or slightly behind him because he knows that's not the puck. And he just has that feel and that understanding of where the puck should go. The other thing he does exceptionally well, I think, is he passes brilliantly on angles. So he's moving one way and he's able to pass it on an angle where you can catch it. So he'll like lead the guy into the puck, which speaks to how well he gives you the puck and how much care he has in the puck he gives you, is that he gives it to you also at the right angle. So he's not like passing it up to you in your skates or in a bad spot. He'll wait, take another step, and pass that then flat or straight across to where you can catch it at the right angle. And I don't think, and again, it's like these things stack on top of each other. So he has an ability to have a lot of poise because of his ability to handle a puck, and his puck protection are unreal. So that gives him the poise. So now he can be patient. He can wait until the right pass comes. And then he's also then has all the feel of the weight. Oh, so he can deliver it when it's supposed to get there with the right weight so you can catch it. And he can find the angles that you might need. And he's willing to if he needs to put it in traffic to find that proper angle, he can do that. I mean, there's just not anything he can't do in terms of passing to get you the puck that you need. And it's just it's an unbelievable talent that he has in his ability to pass pucks, in particular when someone is draped all over him. To me, it's one of the more impressive things to see in the NHL.
Well, it was interesting hearing you describe sort of the weight of the puck and passing to the handedness, because you really see that in a lot of these clips where I don't think he could deliver it sometimes better if he literally picked up the puck with his glove, walked it over to the player, and just dropped it down on the ice for them to shoot it. And he's doing this through traffic. And it's remarkable because these aren't like little sort of soft passes that he's trying to feather in. Like, there's serious velocity and intent behind it. But by the time it arrives, it lands perfectly and neatly for what the player's trying to accomplish. And the reason why I think that's notable is there's been a lot of talk over the past couple of years about, the Oilers' potential over reliance on the power play, right? And it's like, all right, that's great, but what about 5-on-5? And I think his degree of difficulty this season has gone a bit underreported, right? Because I think a big reason for the Oilers' success has been, especially since the coaching change, they're splitting it up. They're having McDavid for the most time play with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Zach Hyman, and they've been awesome together. But because of the way that's distributed, then that leaves a lot of minutes for Draisaitl where he's playing with what I'd classify as inferior talents at this point of their career, right? Like, he's playing with Evander Kane, Corey Perry most recently, but Connor Brown, Warren Fogle, nice players, but players who I think are being asked to do a bit too much. And so a lot of these passes that he's executing, it's one thing to pass the puck like that to McDavid because he'll be able to make something out of it no matter what. But his ability to consistently deliver it in places where some of these other players can still make a play off of it is, I think, very important. A big reason why he's still had that success at 5-on-5, despite the fact that he's not always playing with the team's best wingers.
Yeah, and this is where when you talk about or you hear people say, well, like a great player can elevate the people around him. This type of thing is one of those ways in which they do that, is the way in which they pass a puck, that the timing in which they give it, they kind of stack the deck in the favor of the receiver. You're getting the puck at the right time with the right weight. You can handle it. You're at a good angle. Now all you need to do is execute, put the puck in the net. Like he's taking a lot of the variables away from the receiver. It allows the receiver to confidently go through the proper routes that they need to go through, knowing that when they need it, the puck will arrive. And it's not going to come just a little bit too early, or it's not going to come a little bit too late. He just has that ability. And that's one way when we talk about the responsibility of a great player like a Draisaitl. And in this situation, you've aptly described exactly what needed to happen if they want to win. Is like, it's very difficult to win with what, like everything stacked on one line, etc., or over reliance on the power play when you have things more to your advantage. You split these two guys up, you force them to find success with other people, and then they can come together on the power play or what have you. But I mean, that's what's going to be needed, the distribution of, and so to do that, you have to elevate people around you. And Draisaitl's passing ability, and McDavid for that matter, is a brilliant passer himself.
Mm-hmm.
These two guys have the ability to elevate other people around them, and that responsibility is one I think that they take on as a real, it's a challenge that they want. And they know that, especially now after having a lot of scars of post seasons that just didn't go the way they wanted to, they now see that this could be a part of the path to get to where they need to go. And I mean, you see some of this stuff that he does. It's amazing how well he distributes the puck to give the guy every opportunity to make plays on it. It's brilliant stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this, and listen, they still have that as kind of a break in case of emergency. You see, if they've been in a bit of an offensive rut, they'll put those guys together. They'll top line up with Hyman, and they'll go that way. But he's played only about a third of his minutes at 5-on-5 this season with McDavid. They've split them up for the most part by design, and I think he's having a phenomenal season. He's set such a high standard for himself the past couple of years, right? Like 55, 52 goals. Last year had the 128 points with 60 primary assists on top of the 50 plus goals. But despite the production coming down a little bit, and I think part of that is like he's actually producing at 5-on-5 more than he did last year. The power play has just gone from historically unparalleled to just merely really, really great. And not playing with McDavid as much. I think those things have got into it. But I wanted to shout out what a phenomenal season he's had under the circumstances. Any other notes on Draisaitl? I think what I wanted to note was, and I think this is a good way to end it for me because it accumulates a lot of the concepts we talked about. That set play him and McDavid run, where he scored the goal against the Capitals this year, but he's executed a few times as well, where he sort of cuts across and he comes to McDavid on the half wall, and then he posts up on the inner hash marks, and he turns his back to him, and then receives the pass, and on his back end, and in one motion whips it and shoots it and scores. Not only style points is it really cool, but I think it also incorporates a lot of these concepts we've been talking about, his ability to make plays in traffic, and you can't throw him a bad pass and all that stuff. Like, I just love seeing that. It's one of my favorite plays to watch.
Yeah, putting himself at an availability that's unusual, that doesn't look like an immediate shot threat, and then turning it into a shot threat because he has the ability to handle that, and he has the body control, which at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff as it relates to his ability to play in traffic, his shooting, his passing, his ability to stick handle, all of it's related, and a lot of it is to the body control. And you see him catch the puck, he kind of pulls back off of it. He's able to separate his upper body from his lower body and make that play. It truly is a brilliant play. But it's the unusual nature of it. Who does that? You don't see that ever. That's what makes it so special. And I think that this level of creativity from guys at that level of play, that's what makes it so special. And that's why we love to see them, because you just never know what they're going to kind of invent. And then, then all of a sudden it won't be long before you see other teams trying to find similar types of shots, because it is so unusual. It's a great scoring chance. And it's awesome. Before we go, the one thing I did want to talk about a little bit more is the brilliance of his glide skating. And I think his genius in his skating is his ability to glide. And sometimes it's an active glide, meaning he's gliding, he's not striding, but he is kind of shifting his weight from one side to the other to gain speed or what have you. But I think his ability to glide, to maintain speed, sometimes gain speed, is an underrated aspect of his skating. And I think it's something that he does exceptionally well and is a big tool he uses in a lot of areas of the ice that would go, like you say, like McDavid, McKinnon, Barzell, like their skating, it hits you in the face. Like it's not difficult to see and be impressed by the skating. It blows you away. This guy is weaving in and out of traffic, almost like a Mario Lemieux, like where you're like, man, he doesn't even look like he's moving, but yet he's flying by people. And it's through his ability to utilize that glide. And I think it's an area of skating that we sometimes really undervalue. A glide, we talk about crossovers, linear crossovers, ability to generate speed, change of speed, whether it's deceleration or acceleration. But this actual ability to glide and maintain speed and have that become a tactical advantage is massive. And this guy here, he's a true master of it. It's really one of his, I think, secret sauces that really drives his game.
And it's interesting because I think to maybe a more uneducated eye, that would be used as a knock against him, right? I think some people
Yes.
associate this concept of gliding with like, oh, well, he's not going full effort. He's sort of he's lazy, and in reality, it's a feature, not a bug.
Not some people, me. I was underestimated. It took me a while to really understand what it was that he was doing to get there. And I like to think that I study as much as anybody, and it took me a while to figure it out and really truly appreciate what he's doing. But that is a real secret sauce, and it is something that people can get better at, a glide, but you wouldn't necessarily train that, but yet it has so much value. And I think that it is something that more of us in the training world should be taking a longer look at, is how to improve someone's ability to glide effectively.
Well, I love that. A lot of really fun concepts that I think we got to today, and I think we did justice to what a unique and creative and fun player Draisaitl is. Daryl, this was a blast. I couldn't have spent my Valentine's Day here at work any better than this. Love doing these with you. I know the listeners love it as well. We're gonna have you back on next week. We'll pick another player and we'll get back into it. Everyone, go follow Belfry Hockey. My only plugs are go on the YouTube channel, Hockey PDOcast, and watch along with us. You can see a lot of these concepts we're talking about. And also the invite link is in the show notes for the Discord channel. Hop in there and you can provide suggestions for other players you'd like us to deep dive and all that good stuff and interact with us there. So we'll be back with Daryl next week. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Hockey PDOcast. Thank you for listening to us here on the Sportsnet Radio Network.